Hey everybody, it's hwsteele, and today is February 27th, 2020, and in this video I want to talk to you about how W D Gann was fallible, meaning he was capable of making mistakes or being erroneous. That's what fallible means. And I want to show you one specific example of that. Now, I'm not doing this to tell you, Gann was no good, he was a thief, or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm doing is pointing out in Gann's own words here in a second how he had to change his behavior and remove some information from right in front of him because it was causing him to go against what he knew he should be doing. In other words, he was finding it hard to control himself because of a certain situation. So let's get into that really quickly here. In Gann's 1909 Ticker and Investment Digest article here, in paragraph number 50, it's written that Mr. Gann was born in Lufkin, Texas, and is 31 years of age. He is a gifted mathematician, has an extraordinary memory for figures, and is an expert tape reader. Take away his science, and he would beat the market on his intuitive tape reading alone. So here we have a big brag about how good Gann was at reading the ticker tape, which is the closest to real-time data that they were capable of getting back in those days for information from prices for the stock market and such. Now, if we go to Gann's 1942 book, How to Make Profits Trading in Commodities, and this is actually the 1951 version of it, but this part that I'm about to read to you is in the original version also. On page 5, Gann tells us, let's listen to this for a second. I am not guessing or giving you a wild theory. I have gone through the mills. I have had every ticker in my office, meaning cotton, grains, stocks, and so forth, for years. I have thought I could not get along without them and lost plenty of money by having them in the office and getting in wrong. In other words, he entered the market at the wrong price and time because the ticker showed some minor trend and threw me off the main trend, which he had already figured, which I had figured. In other words, he did his calculations like he's very well known for, and the tickers still caused him to, or he let the tickers cause him to still get in or out of the markets incorrectly. I mean, think about that for a second. I made a greater success when I took all of the tickers out of my office and have not had a ticker in my office for the past 10 years. So this was 42, so 10 years before that was 32. So all the way through the 20s and into the early 30s, Gann had tickers in his office and couldn't control himself. Now, I'm not saying he just made horrible trades all the time, but he says it right here that he would get into or out of the market at the wrong time because of the constant information from the tickers. Think about that for a second. W D Gann just admitted in this book he couldn't control himself as well as he wanted to, as well as he knew he could, because of the tickers. Okay? He says, when you get too close to anything, especially to the ticker tape, it warps your judgment and causes you not to follow rules or act on a well-defined plan, but to trade on hope or fear. And he says a man cannot watch the tape and not be influenced by hope or fear. So think about that. Gann's telling you right here, out in the open, that he makes mistakes, that he made mistakes, that he made so many mistakes when the ticker was in his office that he knew to improve himself, he had to remove that influence from him because it was causing him to go against what he knew he should be doing. And that was all the way in the 30s. So that means he was in his 50s when this was still happening. So contrast that to what was being bragged about him in 1909 when he was 31, and we see that maybe he was an expert tape reader, but he believed himself to be better than his tape reading because his tape reading was causing him to get in and out of the market incorrectly. So like I said, I'm not bringing this up to put Gann down in any way. In fact, maybe a little bit of the opposite, to acknowledge the fact that he is acknowledging that he's not perfect And when he can finally come to grips with that imperfection in himself, he was then able to do something about it to improve his situation. I mean, think about that. He had obviously the reputation of being an amazing tape reader, at least at some point, at least early in his career, right, from the 1909 interview. Well, he eventually got to the point where he realized he could do better without that constant flow of information. So my point to you is simply, don't be afraid to improve yourself. Don't get stuck in a rut thinking that there's nothing better than what you're currently doing. Don't think that you can't improve yourself. Now, that doesn't mean you should just willy-nilly go adding this method or that method to your trading. You should obviously create yourself a very good trading plan and follow that trading plan. But the point basically is, even someone as amazing as W D Gann can make big mistakes and can take obviously a lot of years before he admitted to himself what was causing the mistakes. So just take that and think about it for a while, meditate on it, and think of how you might be able to improve yourself if you admit to yourself that you have shortcomings, things of that nature. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and end the video here, and I will talk to you next time. This is hwsteele.